Hello all, it's Carrie here. I'm excited to dive into a topic that I hear so much about. This is actually the number one symptom that people always want help with. And so I'm excited to dive into this in a really unique way that maybe you haven't heard of before, and just a different way to approach it. But I hope above anything that I can help you to see why you might feel fatigued all day, every day, or possibly just throughout the day. It just depends, right? We all kind of feel things in different ways, but I hope as I go through this information that it'll just enlighten you on this subject. But a little bit about me, if you're new here. My name is Carrie Cootie. I am a believer. I'm a wife, a mom. I'm a pharmacist. I'm also an integrative health practitioner. And what I really love to do is help people gain more energy and more clarity so that they can be their best, so that they can do God's work in the best way possible. So that's really why I'm here and why I show up. Why I really love to help you just to look at health in a holistic way. And we have these different things that come up. I love to do different topics and just to kind of approach them from a holistic standpoint so that we can see why we're feeling that way and hopefully make some changes so that we really can have long-lasting change. None of these things are necessarily going to be quick fixes, but it's totally worth it to really change some of these things up so we can feel just completely different. I mean, I want to ask you that question. If you're coming to this class, whether you're live, if you are live, say hello. But whether you're live or watching the recording, like, how are you coming to this workshop? We're going to be talking about energy today. I mean, are you like, if you had more energy, what would you feel? I mean, obviously you would feel more energy. But how would that impact your life is what I really meant to say. If you had more energy, like, what would you be able to do? I think there's so many things that we could probably think of, but it'll look different for everybody. So let's kind of dive in. And as questions come up, please feel free to always message me and comment below, and I'll definitely answer them as we go. But, the thing is, we're talking about energy today, but when you get to a point of, exhaustion and fatigue and maybe even some burnout, and you're pushing through it with things like coffee or energy drinks, and you're continuing to do what you're doing, but because you're only digging a deeper hole. If you continue to push through the day, allowing your body to really, you think you need more energy, so you just drink more coffee or you get that energy drink, you're really only digging a deeper hole. And so we're going to kind of unpack that in this workshop. It will be on for about 20 to 30 minutes, just to let you guys know. I always like to give you an expectation of how long this is going to last. But if we have questions, obviously it can go longer. So if you want to change that, you have to change some things. I really want to encourage you to get that into your mind, right? I mean, if you keep doing the same things, nothing's going to change. And so here are the reasons I feel like we think we have no energy. We have kids. They keep us busy. We just have less energy because we have kids. And it's kind of like accepted because, I have kids and so I have less energy now. Maybe it's work. Maybe your work is really stressful and you just kind of blame it on that. Possibly you think, I'm just getting older, so I just have less energy because as we get older, we just have less energy. And these are the things that we start to kind of rationalize in our mind in the way that, I guess I'm just getting older. I guess I'm just a mom now, so I'm just going to be more tired all the time. And the thing is, that's just not the case. So here's another question I have for you. Do you find yourself feeling this way? Like do you feel like you constantly need coffee throughout the day? This is a big one because, listen, I like coffee. I'm not going to say that I don't like coffee, but I drink decaf and I only have probably about half a cup a day. And I'm not shaming anybody that has 10 cups of coffee a day. I'm just encouraging you to think, okay, how many cups of coffee do I really need a day? And could I give it up if I wanted to? Sometimes it has a way bigger hold on us than we really realize. Are you too tired to play with your kids? I would often find myself feeling this way when I was working at the pharmacy, when I would work full time and I would come home, like I was just exhausted. I didn't really have much energy left over to really want to play with the kids. It was like, all right, let me just turn on something on TV and I'm just going to lay on the couch. Do you find it hard to wake up in the morning? Like, you can't keep going? And a lot of times we rationalize this because we say we're just not a morning person. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Do you just really struggle making it through the day without some kind of help? Whether that's like, an energy supplement, coffee, an energy drink, whatever it might be, you just really struggle. trying to find the energy to make it through without some kind of help. So these are just questions I wanted to just to kind of bring up and so you can kind of make a mental note. So here's honestly the real reason that we don't have as much energy as we should. It's really all about stressors that are on our body. And so we're going to kind of unpack this, and I want to give you some really practical information to help you realize how much stress really is on the body. And it's not all about the way that we think about stress. Okay, so here we go. So in general, I want you to know this above all else. Like, your body prioritizes survival. Like, that's its number one priority. And so when anything interferes with that, that's when your body feels like it's threatened. Because obviously it just wants to survive. And so if anything comes in the way of that, it's going to have protective mechanisms. So when our body feels threatened, that's when we really get into trouble. And maybe you're thinking, like, I'm not threatened. I don't know what you mean, Carrie. I don't feel threat. But it's all these little things that we do on a daily basis that really start to add up. And here's the thing. Your body doesn't know the difference between an actual stressor / threat and a perceived stress or a threat. So just think about this. You're rushing to work. Maybe you're waiting in the carpool line, or maybe you're waiting to pick up the kids. Maybe you're kind of stressed because you're having to learn online learning for your child. Maybe you have financial stress. Maybe you're arguing with your partner. Maybe you're yelling at the kids. Maybe you're mad at a neighbor. Like, there's all these different things that we just think, oh, well, that's just life. It's just life, right? And so when we have all these different things coming at us like that, like, these perceived stress are constantly attacking our body, and we don't get a break. And maybe little or big, some of these things are little and we think, oh, well, that's over, but they linger and they really add up, and our body kind of keeps score. But these are all perceived stressors. But I just want you to think about being busy. I really think that sometimes we think we just live in a stressful world. We're just busy. That's just how it is. But your body doesn't understand busy. And it, like I said, it really does keep score. And all these little stressors really start to add up. Poor health is also a stressor to our body. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But working out too much and too hard can also be a stressor on our body. Because all of these things kind of add up, and they create this constant state of fight or flight. That means your body has this perceived stress and it's ready to actually fight. Like, actually go out and fight something and expend some energy and expend some of that blood sugar that it's kind of mounting in your body. But the thing is, we don't really go out and move and get that out. We let it build up. And so a lot of times we're just under this constant state of stress. Our body is perceiving that. And, it just kind of goes back to, we're stressed, we're bothered, we're annoyed, we're in a hurry. And I just can't tell you, like, I've really had to work on this so much, because I think that sometimes it can be somewhat of your personality. You just kind of can stay in that a little bit more than someone else. Maybe you don't even realize that you're being that way. But it was probably, well, definitely when I was working full time, but even after I kind of transitioned to home, I just was always in a hurry. Like, I just always felt just a little bit on edge, just always feeling like I was behind. It was just this crazy feeling, but it was all perceived. It was all things because I was putting myself in that position, And I think it's just really important that we realize, what state are we in all day? Are we mostly in that state, or are we mostly in, we're going with the flow? We're planning. Obviously, there's things that are coming up, but we are aware that, if we feel these things, we need to get out of that state. We don't need to just constantly stay in there, because all these things add up and your body simply can't keep up. And we're talking about energy today, and you're probably thinking, well, are we really talking about energy? Because you haven't talked about it very much. I want you to understand, these are the reasons why you feel fatigued, because they add up and your body simply can't keep up. Remember, your body's worried about survival. And so what happens is, when you're in that state constantly, your cortisol level, which is the stress hormone, is constantly elevated. And your body it realizes that's not where it needs to be, right? There's a normal rhythm that our cortisol should be in. It should be higher in the morning, and then it should fall throughout the day and be the lowest at night. But when it's constantly high, your body realizes that's not good. So it starts to down-regulate the cortisol. And that's really a protective mechanism, but that's why we feel tired. It's because we've been in this state of go, 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 go. And our body's kind of like, okay, I can't keep up with that. And it's not good for the cortisol to just be high all throughout the day. And so it protects itself. It's in it for survival. And so that's again why we feel fatigued. And there can be varying levels of fatigue. I get that. And this is really how you get your energy back. So maybe you are just lacking a little bit of energy. Maybe you're lacking a lot of energy. I'm not sure where you're at, but I really think that something in this workshop is really going to help you to see, okay, I need to pay more attention to this. I need to be way more aware. So let's talk about coffee. Listen, I'm not saying that you need to give up your coffee. So before you think that's what I'm saying, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I want you to realize, how are you using coffee? Because I know that, I just know most workplaces have coffee going all throughout the day, because so many people use it to just get through the day. They use it to just push through. And honestly, I just want you to see how that's digging a bigger hole. Yes, you are getting through the day, but this is taking a huge impact on your health. It really is. Over time especially, it's just not safe. That's what your body is saying. It's not safe to stay in this spot. And so you're using, it's down regulating. That should be like, when you feel fatigued, honestly, that should, like day after day after day, that should be a warning sign to you. But the fact that we're using these things to push ourselves, from day to day just to get through it, it's kind of like covering up. It's almost like a Band-Aid, right? And so your body's saying that's not safe. And so that's how we start to have major issues. This might be a minor issue for you, but it can definitely turn into a major issue quickly. And if you've kind of followed me for any length of time, you've probably heard me talk about, sorry, this here's, you probably realize that, I talk about the rain barrel, our barrel. It gets full, throughout the things that we eat, and our stress, and maybe our gut health, and all these different, our toxin exposure, all these different things start to fill up our barrel, and then it starts to run over because we're not emptying it. Like, it's just getting full. And so this is one of the ways that it gets full. And when it starts to overflow, that's when we start to see major issues. And so it just is going to depend on a lot of other factors about when you might see issues, but it's just a matter of time. And so that's why I really hope that you take this to heart and really look to see where you are and take an honest reflection so that you can start to take steps in the right direction. We're gonna get to that in just a minute. But just to go back, and I think so many times, especially with maybe, using this coffee in the morning, like to get going, or throughout the day to keep going, the reason why your body won't let the cortisol release in the morning is because it's been chronically elevated in your body, and like I was saying, it just says it's not safe. So basically, a normal rhythm of your body is called a diurnal rhythm, is like, it's no more. And so that's why, when you say, well, I'm just not a morning person, I don't have any energy in the morning. Nobody is just not a morning person. You've trained your body through various things to adapt to what you've given it. And if it has a really hard time waking up in the morning, you don't have any energy, it's probably because of what I've already stated. Your body's kind of down regulating. And so if your body won't release cortisol in the morning, then you're not going to have energy in the morning. That's how we get energy in the morning naturally, is by cortisol being released in the morning. Cortisol, remember, is a stress hormone, but it's getting our body ready to do something, right? It's giving our body energy that it thinks we're going to need to go out and do something. So it's normal to be higher in the morning and to be lower at night, and that's the rhythm that our body is supposed to be in. And we're going to talk about rhythms more in just a minute because they are very important. Okay, so basically, when we feel fatigue at a very basic level, something is out of balance. That should make sense at a very basic level. Our body is trying to protect itself, and it's always really trying to come back to balance, right? It's in that survival state, but it wants to come back to balance. So I hope that you can see how busy is ruining your health, and your body can only keep up for so long before it starts using protective mechanisms. So let's talk really quickly about ways that it gets out of balance. And I mentioned that it was stress on our body, and I mentioned perceived stress. And there's also another type of stress that is actual stress on our body, kind of from the inside. So, of course, there's work, life, emotional stress that I talked about earlier, but then there's also digestive stress. And I know that if you've been following me or just in general, a lot of people are talking more about, gut health and our microbiome. That's like our overall kind of where our gut is as a whole in the health realm. And so this can take a really big toll on our health, because if our overall digestion, our microbiome are off, if our gut health is compromised, that could be from a lot of different ways. If you have some type of yeast overgrowth or bacteria or a parasite or a malabsorption issue, like there's all kind of things that could be going on in your gut. That is going to add to your total stress load, because the inflammation that causes in our body, it actually sends signals through our vagus nerve to our brain that something's wrong in our gut. And so that's just one more stressor. And you have to think about it. This is going on all the time. That's constant. And so our body is constantly sending signals to our mind saying something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. It's just a really big issue, and I think that's why you're starting to see more about it. I don't want you to get hung up on the little details. I really want you to see the overall picture, but I do want you to realize that it is something that we need to pay more attention to. Things like leaky gut, that is allowing particles and things to go out of our gut lining, which is supposed to keep particles in, but if it's leaky, then it's going to let things out. That causes more inflammation in your body. So if you've ever used antibiotics, NSAIDs, alcohol, birth control, processed foods, which I would probably say most of us have used one of those things, you probably have some level of leaky gut. Again, how does this relate to energy? It creates more inflammation, which sends a biosignal to our brain. There's stress in our body. That it kicks our body into protective mode, and it downregulates our cortisol, which downregulates our energy. So I hope you can kind of follow along with me on this. But I think it's important to understand this, because I think so often we can go back to, well, I'm just getting older. Well, I just have kids. Well, my job is stressful. Sure, those things are real things that we deal with and that we're going through, but that doesn't mean that you have to have lower energy and lower vitality overall. One other stressor that I just want to mention is recurrent viruses and like chronic health issues. These are things like Crohn's disease, IBS, Hashimoto's, things like that. These really start to happen because there's imbalances in your immune system, and that can cause stress on your body as well, because again, you have to think that's constant stress. That's stress, all day, every day. Maybe it's a lower level, but it's still stress, and that's still triggering your brain to that way. So every system in our body really works like a seesaw. So it's always trying to balance. And I talk a lot more in depth about this in my program, Rebalance for Resilience, because that's really the reason why we feel these symptoms, because our body's off balance. And I think that, we're talking a lot about stressors today. Our body, especially, work-life emotional type stress, like our body is meant to have some stress. But it's the fact that we were only meant to dip in and out of those for periods of time, maybe a few hours a day, maybe one day. But like, we're living in that stress now. It's like there's never a beginning and an end. There's only just constant stress. And so I'm actually going to post some simple self-test questions. I'll share them with you right now, because this is actually going to turn into a blog post. I always love to put these workshops and kind of have them have a home. So they're going to be on my website under my blog. But these are just simple questions you can ask yourself. Like, can you just sit and do nothing? Do you have a hard time relaxing? Is it easy for you to fall asleep or without any sleep aids within about 10 minutes? Do you wake up anxious? Like, are you always worried about like something's going to go wrong next? These are questions that really are important, because we're going to talk about this as we kind of close. It's very important that we can get out of this stressful state and into what's called the peripheral nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a way that we can rejuvenate from the stress that we feel, and we can relax, and our body can actually heal. You cannot heal if your body is in fight or flight. You just won't. And so you have to really focus on how can I get out of this stressful state. We're going to talk about how you can do that, and how you can really seek to rebalance so that you can start to see some of your natural energy, and you don't have to rely so much on some of these things to just get through the day. Like, that's the last thing that I want you to have to do. And again, it's not going to happen overnight. these are like lifelong. These are things that you're always going to be working towards. These are things that I'm constantly working towards, because I want you to think about it. And how we rebalance, we have to have a strong foundation. I want you to think about your health foundation, just like that verse in the Bible where it says like building your house on a rock versus building your house on the sand. I want you to think about which one are you building on right now. If something a big life event comes, or something that big happens, big stressor, are you easily shaken? Does your health take a huge downfall? These are things that really make a huge difference, because we're going to have things that happen. I don't live in fantasy land and think that like we're not going to have stressors and we're not going to have things that we come in contact with. But the thing is, we have to know, are we building our house, our health foundation house on a rock or on the sand? Because if we're building on the sand, it's going to be very shaky. Whenever, we just don't know what's going to happen. A traumatic experience. We could get some type of virus that a lot of people are talking about now. And our health just goes way downhill. Like, that's how it happens. People wonder why some people do well and some people don't. It's not always because of this. There's a lot of other factors, but this is a part of it for sure. Okay, so let's talk about how do you build a strong foundation. Diet. That's number one. When we eat processed foods that are full of fake ingredients, not only do we make our bodies work that much harder, so that depletes some of our energy, but I kind of equate it to like having termites in your foundation. It slowly eats away at our strong foundation that we might have had through inflammation. Because when we eat things that our body does not recognize, it produces inflammation in our body. And whether you feel that or not, it's happening. And that is a way that it kind of eats away at your strong health foundation, often before you even realize anything has happened. And so I'm not going to go into great detail. I think and I think most of us know what we should be eating, which is whole foods, and what we shouldn't be eating, which is processed foods full of fake ingredients, sugar, things like that. I don't think we need to spend any more time on that. I have a lot more information in my program, but it's important. That's number one. Another thing is just exercise, just moving. But I feel like the right way is very important, because when we kill our bodies in the gym, it creates more stress on our body. And I hope you can see why we don't need more stress on our body. We just don't. So exercising, walking is huge. I used to think walking was like such a waste of time. I really did. But now I have realized so much more how it's a great thing to do, especially if you're just getting into exercise. And I just feel like it's so beneficial. It actually helps us to get into that parasympathetic nervous system so that we can relax more. So you're getting movement, but you're also getting into a more relaxed state, versus something like a HIIT workout. I'm not picking on a HIIT workout, but it is very stressful. And maybe not as frequent workouts that are high intensity are fine. But if you're doing high intensity over 30 minutes, you're going to get into a stressful state. It's not going to be good. So I just want you to think about that and not underestimate the power of just simply going for a walk. And so then another thing is just using supportive things to our body. Obviously, diet can be supportive, exercise can be supportive, but I'm talking about supplements. And this is truly so important to support your body in this way, because, like I said, it's not like we can just wipe all the stress out from our body. Our life and our body just like that. Sure, we can do things that help decrease stressors on our life and our body, but you're going to need support. It's just how you build that strong foundation. So there are certain foundational supplements that I feel like we should always be on. And the top two are definitely some kind of activated multivitamin and then an omega supplement, because most of us are very deficient in those. And then others will probably be for a season until we can decrease some of the stressors in our life and on our body. But if we can't or aren't willing to cut back, then we should stay on these. And these are things like extra B vitamins, adaptogens. They really help to soothe the stress response on our body. Copaiba essential oil is one of my favorites, and then adaptive as well. Those four are really, really great. It helps the body deal with stressors on it. And so that's really important when you think about building a strong foundation. And then lastly, obviously, is decrease the stressors. All the things that I mentioned, I realize that our life does have stressors to it. And that it might be busy. Maybe you're in a season where your kids are very active. Maybe you're in a season where your job is a little bit more, it's just taking more out of you. It's just requiring more of you. I understand that, but the way that we look at life oftentimes is super critical, because if we're constantly thinking, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm in a hurry, I'm late, I'm behind, that's key. I mean, we might be busy, but we can have this assurance. Like, I always have to remind myself, like, God's given me enough time to do the things today that He wants to do, that He wants me to do. Because I used to be so bad about, like, even if I had an hour, like, it was never enough, and I'm always behind, and I'm always in a hurry, and I'm rushing. It's just the way that I was looking at it. I don't necessarily have more time now than I did a year ago or 2 years ago, but it's just simply the way that I look at it and the way that I approach life that has really helped me tremendously. And so I just encourage you, if you live a stressful lifestyle, there might not be a whole huge overhaul that you can do right this second, but there are ways, and I hope that I've helped you to see there are ways that you can decrease the stress impact on your life, especially. So in closing, we just need to get into that parasympathetic nervous system more. And I go into this in detail in my course and program, Rebalance for Resilience. And it walks through all of this, and it gives you way more detail and a lot more actionable steps that you can take. And one more thing that I wanted to mention. I mentioned rhythm. Rhythm's very important for our day and our health, because it's a way that we can feel good about, okay, we're going to get into things that really help us to move out of that stressful state and into more relaxed state. And it helps our body because it knows what to expect. Just like a baby. Remember, if you've had a child before, whenever you brought it home from the hospital, in those first few months, especially in weeks and months, a routine was super key. I know it was for us anyway, because babies love routine. They do. They love to know what to expect. It helps calm them. It helps their body to grow and develop in a great way. We need that too. And I know that we cannot have such a controlled environment like a baby does, but it's just super important that the rhythms and routines that we can have, we keep them, and we're very protective around those. So I want to introduce you really, really quick to the 3 anchor method. This is a way that we can not just stay in a stressful state all day long, day in and day out. 3 anchor method just really helps us to get out of that stressful state and move into a more relaxive state throughout the day. So I go into this more, like I said, in my program, but it just means having a morning routine, having kind of like a lunchtime, midday routine, and having an evening routine. Super key. It might sound really trivial and really small things that you can do. I'm going to talk more about this because I don't really have time in this class, but I definitely think this is really important for us to know and see that we can have these little things in place that just help us to slip out of a stressful state and into a relaxive state. It kind of tempers that stress response throughout the day. So I hope that you've enjoyed this class, and I hope that it might not have been what you were exactly thinking about when you think of energy. Is she not going to give me some ideas so I can have energy right now? There are some things that you can use to have more energy. I mean, honestly, exercising and getting out and moving helps you to have more energy. I love to use like peppermint essential oil for more energy. That's like quick, short bursts of energy. Obviously, the exercise is going to maybe give you energy for longer, but these things are things that we can do to really help day to day. These things that I've showed you can really help you over your lifetime to gain more energy and for the long haul. And that's really what I'm interested in. I mean, obviously we have these things that we can use to kind of wake ourselves up and have more energy throughout the day, but I really want you to have sustained energy, because that way, again, my whole mission is to give you more energy and more clarity so that you can show up and you can be the best that you can be, so you can do God's best. Because that's really, I feel, what our whole goal is and why we're here on earth, so that we can do more of His work and just have the energy to do it. Sometimes we have all these goals and we have all these great intentions, but we simply don't have enough energy. And again, the clarity. a lot of these really make our clarity kind of fuzzy, and we can't get done the things that he wants us to do and maybe that we really want to do and have in our heart. So I hope you've enjoyed this class. I really enjoyed being with you today. This is a topic that I love to talk about. I'm sure this will not be the last time you hear about it, but if you have someone in your life that you feel like would really benefit from this information and maybe really struggles with energy, or you really love the class and you'd love to share it, I would be so appreciative that you would do that. Again, you can share out this video. It'll live on Facebook. I'll keep it on IGTV as well, but it'll also live on my blog on my website, which is carriecootie.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you all later. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.